They're cool. They're riding to 130 South Australian constituents.
130 account holders in South Australia. That was it.
Yeah. All right. We'll talk about it in the show. That sounds like a good idea. It'd be good if we could see each ourselves here, Joey.
Give me a break. It's my first day, Potts.
Sorry. It looks like you've got it pretty good. Anyway. Yeah, we're in.
Right. 3, 2, 1. G'day everyone and welcome to this week's edition of the Melbourne Punters show. As usual, Darren Potter, we've got Dan Kelly with us and we've got Racetrack Ralphie. Boys, the whole band's back together, so good to see you boys.
Safe to shake your hand, Jumpy?
Not really. Not really.
And we had to just press roll because we were wasting too much fucking good stuff. So I said, just roll, let's go.
Anyway, I won't shake his hand, but welcome back, DK. Excellent to have the band back together here.
Before we get to racing, just social media is something that, it's just sharing sort of environment. There's some bad stuff, but there's some good stuff. Man of the year here. I went through a torture last night, IKEA.
I saw you doing that. I just
for my sons, the premise of people say, you do anything for your kids.
Yeah,
draw the line in front of IKEA. So I've finally got it done. What's the bloke called?
Flatpackman.com.au is the man there.
Genius.
$20 an hour. He comes and puts it all together for you.
Outstanding.
Genius. Yeah. Whoever come up with that?
Flatback man. That's it.
This is not a political statement, but Malcolm Turnbull talked about it being, the innovation idea and the
growth and jobs and innovation.
Flatback man. Knighthood.
And I tell you what, if you ever want to ruin Christmas, buy something that's flat pack, especially something like a swing set that I actually finished up taking to with an angle grinder. Speaking of things that I'd like to take to with an angle grinder, boys, I'm sorry we missed last week's show, but I actually caught pneumonia after spending the weekend before last in the betting rings at Flemington and Moe. Those two clubs can look forward to speaking to my legal representatives for pain and suffering.
I know we've touched on a lot here, with our good man Paddy Bet and a few others. I just don't understand for the life of me why the clubs aren't more interested in making it as comfortable and enjoyable environment as possible. I mean, why on earth would you have an outdoor betting ring at a place like Flemington when there's so much room inside the grandstands? Well, but it goes for Moonee Valley and Caulfield as well. I mean, Caulfield is inside, isn't it?
Caulfield is inside.
Moonee Valley.
They all should be inside this time of year. It's nonsense not to be.
Well, I went down to Pakenham when my horse ran 2 weeks ago for the first time. So I was excited to get down for the first time and have a look at the joint.
And it's imminent.
What a joint. Outstanding. Everything's just the bookies are there, comfortable inside, the totes are there, the great nice food, bar, right walk out the front to watch the race, the horses are undercover.
Do they get this from England? Because I found out in Skull, when I was at Ascot, but Scotty Ferguson said that the bookies are outdoors 12 months of the year, no matter what.
Standing puddles there.
Basically, the way the rings are set up in England is the rail lines up with the winning post.
Right.
So that's the rail, and then the other bookies are on the other side of that. So that's
cover, nothing.
Well, I don't know. I went to plenty of jumps meetings in England, and I've never experienced a day as cold as what I did that Saturday at Flemington. That was the worst conditions I've ever worked in.
But do you think the people at Flemington think, well, that's what happens in Ascot, so let's do it here as a
it's just
something to do with the members. So the members in that bottom bar and all that can access the bloody bookies. That's all it is.
What actually surprised me was there was 3 commission agents there to do business, and after 2 races, one of them took his business up to the lawn Undercroft and just bet in there.
Surely there's a spot in the grandstand somewhere where there's a boundary between the members
and the forum.
Well, they used to put them up there in the forum, but then some members complained.
Well, they used to have Flemington midweeks. Back in the old days.
I just say it's wrong that people that they're doing their best. They've got enough courage and wherewithal to stand up there in the betting ring, then freeze them to death and have
some of those Campania's 70 and Norman there, and then making them sit out. No, not just you're getting crook anyway as a younger bloke. It's ridiculous. OHS.
It's one of numerous issues that we've had, and I think we'll start with the most recent one and work our way back. I had the pleasure of being at Pakenham on Sunday, and we'd had a little bit of joy earlier in the day there, and the pattern that had happened the previous couple of meetings was evident, where it was sort of up and off and down the middle of the track, and I was sitting there and I was keeping my eyes on the wonderful Melbourne Football Club and how they were progressing against the Gold Coast.
Go D's. That game nearly started at one stage. Fuck, I was behind glass.
Well, yeah, that would have been real punishment. And I looked over to see that they weren't in the yard yet, but it was only 3 minutes to the off, and I went over there, and there was a few of the regulars there, Peter Ellis and George Vella and a few other boys there. I said, what's happening here? And then they pointed to the tractor pulling the harrows down the middle of the track in the middle of the meeting. Now...
So did anyone from the club come and discuss it with anyone on course? And
not that I'm aware.
Because apparently they sent out an email in the morning to participants. You know, why you think, if you're going to do an email like that, why you think that shouldn't go to punters is beyond me. Why it wasn't sent to the stewards and then the stewards tweeted it out?
Normally the stewards Twitter stream is good. Did they?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know if they haven't sent it to the stewards. I don't know. They've sent this email to... The only people I know that got it, because they sent it on racing.com, was Terry Bailey and whoever the other...
So what was the info on the info?
That they were going to
Harrow
halfway through the meeting.
Well, did Peter Ellis know they were going to Harrow? Was he saying...
Not that I can remember, I don't want to put him in, so I'm not 100% sure. But like, we were all perplexed on why to do it.
Yeah.
That's the next question. Why? Why would you think it would be appropriate
when
no other outdoor sport in the world lets you interfere with something halfway through a contest?
Well, here's my sort of couple of thoughts on it. First of all, can Mick Goody get a time machine and go back to Derby Day and run the elevator down the fence after about race 4?
Exactly.
Because I think if Mick had his time again, he'd like to be able to get the tractor out and say, you know what, we'll just hold the Derby up for 20 minutes. I just want to get this right. You can't do that. And know that if the boys have been there for 2.5 meetings at least, and I think...
Yeah, for sure.
And then I heard Caitlin Mallion say maybe they haven't re-waxed the fibre enough, because there's a lot more kickback at the minute, and it's coming up much finer, and that could be causing it. But it was clear the fence was off. But the thing is, if you'd spent any time mapping out quaddies and putting them on...
I know a big quaddie punter, and he watches first 3 races. His quaddies are more angled right towards buys.
Yeah.
That's where his edge is, working out the buys. Loves really successful jumps like bending and things like that, where he's got the buys right down the middle and everything. So he probably would have put a heap into quaddies, and then all of a sudden there they go.
So I haven't even watched the meeting. So what actually occurred by doing that?
Well, they thought there was, obviously they must have thought there was a compacted patch in the middle of the track that was firmer than what the rest of it was.
Yeah.
So then by harrowing it and ripping it up, that would have potentially evened it out.
Did it become fence on?
No.
The next leader one, but it might have been the fastest horse out of the team though anyway.
Yeah, it sort of become a bit more... It tended to make it harder to make up ground after that.
But isn't it... So it comes down to the bottom line, doesn't it? The bottom line is you would only do that if you had no idea of what drives the sport, which is wagering.
Well,
because the people who want to wager would not want that to happen. Not one punter would they?
The only other reason I could come up with, Ralph, is if it was a safety issue. But it wasn't as if it was knock 'em down Derby trying to get to this one spot.
I'm just looking through the results because I hadn't really thought about it much. So after that happened, so the last winner sat box seat, and the horse that was in the photo finish winner that was 50s was on its back, so it was 3 back on the rail. So in the first half of the meeting, that probably wouldn't have been possible.
The last 3-4 meetings there wouldn't have been possible.
Smart Dart sort of come out wide. Race 8 was Star Circle, who was sort of 1 by 1, or the next pair back, and it come off the favourites back that bled. So it did change things around. It certainly did. It's very.
Who would have ticked off on it? I mean,
apparently it's common in England for them to do this. So, I mean, I didn't know any of this. I just heard them talking about it. So apparently that's what they do. So that's information's obviously filtered through to the track manager, and he said, well, if they do it in England, we'll do it here. But I'm wondering if they did harrow the track before the meeting started, and if they didn't, why? Why would they leave it till after the middle of the card?
The reason why they harrow them in England is generally when they harrow them is when it gets really, really cold, and it's to stop it from freezing together.
Yeah.
The explanation, or part of the explanation, possible explanation that I was giving for Pakenham was, it was like what it is today, where it was a bright sunny day and quite nice, and that when it gets some warmth into the track, that changes the texture of it as well.
But they decided to do it, early in the morning, because they sent that email out before 7 o'clock or something.
The thing is, if they'd done it an hour before the first, no one knows about it. But don't hold up race 4 or 5 or whatever it was while you're harrowing the track.
I think the truth is that we're all new to these. Should
have been tweeted out 4 times.
Exactly, that's the answer. So we're all new to it, so none of us are experts. We don't really know. So the point is, if they're going to do this type of thing, they have to give that information to every punter that's punting on that meeting. Like it should be in the what is it, the Sun Herald or whatever the main paper is down here, and
it should be in the form guides.
In the form guides. It should be on Twitter.
And they should be announcing it after each. Yeah. The guys on track, anywhere, the race callers announcing that it's going to happen later.
If you don't do a meeting,
it's so important. Jesus
Christ. If you don't do a meeting on the day, what you do, if you're Fettingham, we all are here, is that you look at the printout of a meeting, and then you say, well, the race 2 was 0.8 of a second slower than race 7, and you try to match things up. Well, you're not matching up like for like if they harrow a fucking track.
Like
halfway through the day.
And this sort of flows into the first note that I had written here about the other Wednesday where Sandown was called off after a race. I can understand them trying to harrow and aerovate to try and fix that, because you walked that track, didn't you, Pops? That Sandown meeting. And
So before we move on to that, just before, I just want to say everyone, we got there's 3 1600 metre races that we can talk about at the meeting yesterday, Sunday at Pakenham. The maiden, it was a pretty decent maiden, the lady effort one.
Yeah, they didn't go hard, but it was...
They didn't go hard, so, but they come from the back, so it's 140.75, and then the 2 other higher grade, fair enough, 1600 metre races, they've run over a second and a half quicker overall, so... Yeah, I don't know what that means. Is very,
as
a second and a half's a lot though. That's more than what you would expect.
Yeah.
Unless the sectionals bear it out. Anyway, sorry, go on, jump into the Sandown.
So we had Sandown. You walked the track, didn't you, Potts? And you didn't think that there was. You thought that there might be. You thought that was probably the worst area of the track where they came down the hill.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I walked the track the day before, and after I walked it overnight, there was 2 mil of rain. But when I walked it, the track was in incredibly good health. It's just got a lot of grass on it, the roots are right in it. It's just, the team out there have done a really good job. The problem is with that lakeside track is the home turn is very sharp and the run down the hill is steep. So if there is ever going to be some kind of issue with traction or anything, that's where that's going to be the problem. And I think I'm not sure if this is in Tim's defence or not, but I think Tim Bailey might have been a bit worried about trainers being upset that the track was a bit firm for this time of year, and as a result, this is just me saying this. He didn't say this. I'm just guessing. I think he might have left the grass longer than he otherwise would have, and as a result, so this is just me guessing. The rain that fell, because it wasn't heavy, all sat in the grass and made it very greasy on top.
Yeah.
I think if you had to cut it shorter, it wouldn't have been a problem.
Yeah. And we had the hung parliament as well, where the jockeys voted 6 to ride and 6 not to.
That was one of the best hours I've ever seen on Twitter. Leading up to that, the photos of the jockeys skinning
when they were sliding around.
Well, you were in Group 1 form, and then they said the bloody vote, and so it was going to be like Survivor or something.
Everyone comes in with a tiki torch and we'll just turn it out if you...
Adam Blenko, he put a river of a bloody fucking... So the rest of the cat just going on.
The issue that we just discussed in here about Pakenham yesterday, about the harrowing of the track mid-race but no one knows, I think applies to them aerovating that section, because running the knife through the track on that turn would change that area from what was basically a 4 to a 6, or from a 5 to a 7 or whatever. It would be at least 2 grades. I don't think it's fair to do that and continue on with the meeting. So the way they got to the result to me is a bit dubious. But if they were concerned about safety, it should have been cancelled straight away.
Len Walker knew, he was on them before the Harrow, and he said, well, they're going to Harrow, and he said, it's too late.
Yeah.
So tell me this. Why was race 1 not called a day, the only race? Why was that not called a day race?
I don't know if I agree with that, Ralphie. I mean, they ran the race. They ran the race. I mean, I understand. But it was if they had called it the no race, I wouldn't have objected.
If he pulled up the second horse or something like maybe, or a couple of them pulled up and stopped, but they I see it, but I think it was a race. They'll finish the finish line.
You also missed the
4. Do you know why I'm not blowing up though about it?
You found the winner of the first?
No, because I didn't have a bet. So
yeah, but just the only unconscious, but the $1.80 favourite, punters got rolled again.
Exactly.
$1.80 favourite's over, it's gone because it slipped over.
You want unconscious?
Things happen in every race, you know what I mean? I just sort of think, once you start subsequently calling races no races when...
But it was pretty funny, the thought that 51% of jockeys, close you could get, could have decided that meeting. That's pretty funny.
Yeah,
that means 49% don't want to ride, so what happens then? As if you fucking bet on that.
Did you ever sick beat?
Yeah, well, I had to try and get paid off the bookies for setting everyone up after they'd only run one race. How do you reckon that went down? half of the dominating favourites one. There won't be tin hat on.
So can I just, this is something that I want to discuss. So I'm not sure if I should be blending the two issues, but I think it's worth discussing. So that meeting was called off because the jockeys basically deemed it was unsafe, even after they aerobated the home turn. Then the following week we had another meeting on the same track.
Yep.
And in a race going down the hill, a couple of jockeys in front hit the anchors and stopped in front of the field. That caused all sorts of carnage behind them, and two jockeys fell.
Is that definitive that that's why they fell?
No, I'm just saying what I saw was the anchors going on down the hill, the field stack up behind them, and two horses fall.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm saying that practice, that practice happens every meeting, every week across the board of jockeys massively slowing in the middle of races. And I'm saying it is the most dangerous practice in racing. A lot of falls are caused by it, and the majority of interference in races is caused by these huge mid-race slowdowns, because a lot of jockeys in this country are addicted to the out of the gates, hit the brakes and then try and go again. And I think it's time the stewards had a really close look at it and crack down on jockeys that are stopping in the middle of races and causing interference.
But here's the problem.
It's so dangerous.
Here's the problem. We have stewards, this is not personal, I've said it a number of times, we have stewards who don't look at times.
Yeah.
They look at vision. So they think that something happens for a reason, but unless you see vision, and I don't think since, I reckon Damien Oliver at Moonee Valley, 5 years ago, was the last jockey to have been charged and he got off with dropping anchor. I don't think there's
been a few reprimands, but it doesn't have no idea it happens.
Well, I don't know why the jockeys don't blow. I mean, they talk about safety, and rightfully so.
That's my point. That's my point. They talk about safety. That is the most unsafe thing that's happening in racing.
Yeah.
I don't know why they don't.
Something should be done about it.
It's not going to affect us, but it's going to affect them.
It's the second most unsafe thing in racing, Fox.
What's the most stopping?
Flemington betting ring.
Tom Booker was going to say low draws on favourites.
That led us to the Flemington meeting, boys. They only got 97 horses there.
How good was that?
It was going to save a bit of time for everyone, but it was just that in-between meeting, wasn't it, where...
yeah, I didn't mind.
Didn't matter if we win.
Yeah, made my life easier.
Exactly.
Well, something that didn't make your life easier, though, Fox was the last at Flemington on that...
Astro.
Beating...
Well, I've saved one that no one's... an angle no one's taken. Right, I've saved it. So Astro Castro goes into the meeting in a quaddy leg on a Saturday with no exposed form.
Last week too.
Last
week.
So, not one punter has blued that anyone's got to quit out of it. We couldn't give a fuck. You know, most of us went on Timpanise, given that it was, or was it $9? That means 90% of people aren't on it, right? Or whatever, roughly. So we're blowing about the lack of information, and more to the point that the industry doesn't understand that there's lack of information, and that's all. Pretty much every angle's been taken at that. But last Saturday at Caulfield, there's a horse called Flake and Chips.
Yep.
In the second last race. It too had no exposed information. After it ran 150th, and you look this up in the stewards report, the trainer gave an undertaking to the stewards that he wouldn't nominate that horse in the metropolitan area again. Here's the point. Astro Castro, who won in best of the day figures on Vince's stuff, but however you looked at it, you'd have to say it was
the best of the day, clearly on raw figures.
There you go. So
it's fucking extraordinary.
Sliced dice, however you want it, it was sensational. And Flake and Chips, that the trainer has had to give an undertaking to the stewards he won't nominate in town again. Both those horses had exactly the same information for people having that bet.
Yeah.
And in leading up, and you know how I work Twitter and throw a bit of billy over the boat, of course. People were saying, "Well, you're just going to throw it in your quaddy."
It's an expensive. That's an expensive operation.
Yeah, exactly. But that's again, we underline it, and we're here for the punters as a punter show. If you like this sport because of wagering, not gaming, you would not throw. There could be a field of 30.
Yeah.
And if you think one is legless, as Flake and Chips clearly is, you would take 29 in the quaddy, wouldn't you? You wouldn't. And that's so for people to say, "Oh, you're going to throw it in if you don't know about it." No, you got to know about it. That's the point. So one horse is best today, the other horse is fucking legless, and the same information was available for punters in a quaddy leg. Fucking terrible.
The other argument that I want to take up is all these, and there's some, plenty of owners. Everyone here knows blokes that own horses. this nonsense that owners should be entitled to first crack. Go to any corporate bookmaker website you like, and go and have a look at the promos. There'll be a promo in there, owners special. Think about that. There's a reason why they do that.
Because they're good blokes.
That's not the same lot of good blokes that I know from the AWC. They do it for a reason. It's because basically most of the owners, and the vast majority, are complete pickles. They back their horse every start.
They bet with their heart.
Yeah, they're emotionally involved, which is fair enough.
God bless it.
Yeah, absolutely.
The thing is, all he had to do was stick it in a quiet jump out somewhere, put heavy shoes on it, put bandages on all four legs, get me to ride it, and everyone still marks in the hundreds. But at least we've seen it.
Yeah.
It's not rocket science, and it's not going. We need someone to have a look and do a detailed study and say, right, does it affect the price? Because in Sydney, I don't think it has.
I just think that at the end of the day, it won't affect the price. I don't think that those connections, that horse,
No.
a reasonable jump out wouldn't have made a huge difference to the price. Might have been 50s instead of 100s or something. But
Wild Rain, could Wild Rain have jumped out any more impressively before it won first up?
No,
it couldn't have. $7.50 as much as
exactly. That's true. So I think that's absolutely valid. But the point remains to the trainer and the connections of that horse. Congratulations, absolutely well done. To the administrators, are you kidding? 2 weeks in a row, we've had quaddy legs with unseen first starters, and as Ralph points out, there was no difference in the information available. One of them wins in the best figures of the day, and one of them you won't accept the nomination for it. Like you've got to stop having unseen first starters in races on a Saturday.
And for a starting point.
As a starting point. That's
a minimum.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't happen in Sydney ever, full stop.
Even with the jump outs, though, Rocket Douglas couldn't wait to get and tell everyone that, Derham was a complete moral off its jump out at Geelong last Wednesday. They have jump outs every Wednesday.
Yeah.
Michael Walker got off Maginot Line in the first at Geelong last week. Couldn't see getting beat if it's jump out at Geelong last week, They're telling the punters after the race,
Right.
Fucking
And we've touched on this before, Dan, you weren't here, but Paul Bloodworth won a horse that won. It just shows you that it's overrated because one horse. But you got to, again, we underline it. You got to understand it's not about our opinion about one horse. It's about our opinion on the overall race. About who the ones to beat are, when we should mark that horse.
Exactly.
And it's the whole picture of a race. You got to learn it.
Every horse, or the price of a horse in a race, affects the price of all the other horses in the race,
but it stimulates. Stimulates. But there's one at Pakenham on Sunday in the first race, I think, called Betty Ray Ruby, and there it was. I think it was Tim Hughes, fashionable trainer. I think Gouch was on it.
Yeah.
And I thought, it'll be 40 to 1 or something. What is it? And then it had a jump out. There's some Flemington jump outs held at Pakenham the other day, and it was in them.
Yeah.
I just sat last and just went. Trucked
Here
we go. And I was like, what price is it again? And just I went up 25s into 13, and it ran 6 to 1, and people are tipping it on Twitter. It's geez, it jumped out well and everything. Stimulated the market. In
an otherwise pretty uneventful race.
And it ran fifth. Just had its chance, but it's just race pressure was a different horse. You had to make an assessment.
Danny O'Brien's horse that won last Wednesday, UW info there, won very well in race 1. On the
Awaken Grinzig.
Well, this is what I've started doing now. So I then, after it wins, and was, 8th? Pretty much 8th. So then I tweeted out its jump outs where it was very impressive on both times.
But I looked at both those jump outs and I thought, one was on the turf, one was on the synthetic. It sort of was okay, you know what I mean?
Right,
I think I might have marked $10, So exactly, that's exactly right. No complaints about that horse beating me. Fair enough. good luck to him. And it's the most impressive winner of the day.
$8.
That's it.
They put up $4 at bookies.
They're just feeling they
want
it.
Then $8. Owners would have got first crack at $4.
I think they want to put up about $6 to $8 early. There was a bit of Wednesday morning support for it, just for an hour or so, and then it slowly got back out to where the market saw it. So,
but there was one comment you made in the chat room, Pots, where you said, "I've broken one of my rules here. We've had a bet in a race where I haven't seen all horses."
Yeah.
So.
I said I was, that was it. Never going to do it again. But then I had the bet in that flake and chips race on. You know what I mean? So I
just take the odds to it not happening in 2 weeks.
It's sort of what you're doing.
They're 100 to 1 because 1 in 100 wins. Obviously.
Anyway.
DK, we've had a couple of queries from Twitter about the robots.
We discussed them a fair bit. We probably haven't gone into much detail.
If you went to the races on a Saturday with your mates, you're in early 20s, and what are these blokes talking about? Robots?
You're not looking for Dexter.
Well, we'll start with the
Robots 101 with DK.
They're a computer-generated price.
Yeah.
And without going into it, we'll go to the original one, which is the Jelco Syndicate, which is one that's been around for ages. So this was a group of guys who went to Tassie University in Tassie, and they're all great mathematicians and things like that. And they got together when they were at uni and started playing blackjack and found a way to beat it, count cards and everything. And then they got restricted, and then they said, "Well, can we create something computer-wise, math-wise, to bet on sport and horse racing?" And they've done that, and so they feed in all the factors, which is track, jockey, distance, everything like that. They've got about 170 factors, which they weight differently, and then it spits out a set of prices, and then they bet late into the TABs in the last 30 seconds. So it's not the market mover, everyone running the TV showing their tickets in. Like there's a really good one. If you want to go and have North Rosa on Saturday, North Rosa was 35 into 12 in the last 7 minutes of betting. Now that's them. That's them betting weight. They've got it marked 12 to 1. They haven't got it marked 33s.
They liked it, did they?
No, that's their price. That's what they priced it. That's their prices in the market late. So here's the original, and then there's others. There's Wood Syndicate, and there's other syndicates who've gone and done the same thing. And then there's the other, like the big punters. Dr. Nix and Sean and Kingsley and Fletcher. They're all obviously, they're not sitting there doing the form on every race every day like we are watching videos. They're getting a computer-generated set of prices that spits out in the morning, then adjusting them and putting in their adjustments and things. So what we're talking about the robots is a robot, a computer-generated price that is backed to be that price. Is that like you can?
If we just peel it back a little bit, basically, what is a group of smart guys that are trying to price the race as accurately as they can, and then bet according to their prices, right? And rather than doing it like we are, which is manually intensive and a lot of videos and all that sort of stuff. When they do all that stuff, they have teams. They have one guy will be doing the videos, one guy does the maps. They have, and everyone
it's all different.
does different bits, right? So, but in the end, what they're trying to achieve is to price the race as accurate as they can, given all the factors, and then their terminology is positive expectation bets. They find the horses that are, if you back that price and back them down to a certain price, as you said, and they, because they're probably very rarely getting all the money they'd like to get on at a certain price, because once they put a certain amount on it, adjusts the price to the point where they stop. So, what you're dealing with here are syndicates with a huge bank that applying a percentage of their bank to those positive expectation bets, and they're doing it very late, and that crunches the price down somewhere to where the bottom of what they would accept is.
And so when you hear it more colloquially, let's say on Twitter or whatever, what it's generally saying is that if a horse is $4, round about that, and then the horse wins, and up it comes on the tote at $2.90, $3 and $3.10. We say the robots are fucking.
That ain't you or me or the owners having a big bet. That is
because that's the only place they can get on. So they wait until the last minute and then they go crunch. And the problem for the sport is that I think, in a general sense, that because we've encouraged corporate bookmakers as an industry, that in the end these people just end up betting against themselves, don't they? Because they can only get on at two places, the totes and the exchange. And if there's not enough liquidity in there, they start betting on sport.
Well, the problem for them is that the tote pools are diminishing.
Exactly right.
Probably they're a victim of their own success.
There's no more rebates anymore, I believe, or if it is, it's minuscule.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, there's one.
I don't think they can afford to anymore.
And the Betfair's high because of the premium charge. They're saying Betfair said to them, "Well, you're winning all this money of us. We're finding all these new clients and trying to get Betfair going. And you're just coming in and raping all our clients. Winning all their money."
Is that their thinking?
Yeah, that's what they're going to charge you a premium charge.
Yeah. So they're different models. There's the ones that are exclusively with the tote, some that do tote and Betfair, some that also
do
bet
everything.
They've got a personal track, and they bet through the corporates. So you'll see, at say 10 o'clock in the morning, across the board, a price will go off.
There was a good one there on Saturday where that price went off, was Nasdaq's.
Oh yeah.
Now that was
the
old Dr. Nick American go that went off. It didn't go off. Was it about 45 minutes before the race? Or
yeah.
It just went 7 into
460. Yeah.
and then ran 290 on the tote or something like that. So
it was just a proper.
So that was a big.
So conversely, if you want an opportunity, I'm absolutely adamant on this, that if you want an opportunity to beat them, as you've often said, Dan, that they're very smart people. They build museums for a reason with their profits. They're very good. But the way you can beat them occasionally is knowing a region.
Well, that's it. They bet on every race. They bet over 100 races or every race every day will beat you.
Yeah.
But I specialise. You specialise. If you specialise, you can get it. And that's when you do beat them, is when you get a polish. You know, when they miss it, when they miss one, it can go from 10s to 25s. You can. I didn't know if I was going back one the other day. It was 10s. I thought, it's going to get back, blah, blah, blah. Then all of a sudden it's 30s on Betfair. So I better have something on it, you know.
I'll give you two that were complete robot. What do you call the robot explosions when they get it wrong?
No, when they get it wrong, malfunction.
So one thing they don't do, they actually give jockeys no bonuses whatsoever if they don't know who they are. And so I had two massive results for different ends of the market. Was reparations on Melbourne Cup Day.
Oh, Wayne Loudon.
Wayne Loudon, who was here to ride some imported English sprinter. So
40s, wasn't it?
$54 best tote. That, you know, I thought it was 12s and had something on it. And I was expecting 20s, and that was unbelievable. And then the other one was earlier this year with Cash Bay, I'm sure it was. Was it Marquardt, or what was that kid who came over?
Oh, Marquand.
Tom Marquand,
Yeah, and all of a sudden it's just got out to 380, and I thought, what? And that clearly was them saying, well, we don't know this bloke, so we're giving him.
And such a big factor for them, you know.
And he nearly fucked it up, and I thought that's why you build museums, but unfortunately we got the result. But that's and so. And not just that, I suppose what you're saying, Dan, is that sometimes you're going to say, well, I understand why they're pushing it this way, but on this occasion, I'm going to forgive this bad jockey or this bad trainer or this bad barrier or on this occasion because of this reason.
What I would say is there's no point being paranoid about it because it's part of the market.
No, but you're thinking.
So that's the way to find an edge or way around it or through it or however you want to put it is to do your own work and work hard. If you put a lot of hard work in and you do a good job and you're confident about the way you've priced a race, we'll just bet to your prices, and you know you'll know yourself how confident you are about whether you've assessed a race correctly or not. And if you see one of these things happening, you know whether you need to react to it or not.
They're very, amazingly smart people, amazingly smart guys. Because they think about stuff we'd never think of. I nearly got a job for one once and went down and caught up with the people, and we were walking to dinner one night, and one guy said, they're thinking about looking at mares and what the moon's like, and you know where the moon's at that time, and how mares perform and different things, all that different stuff. Just just a little edge and how it affects mares. So
what I wanted to discuss, what did you make of Marwood? Was that what do you?
I would say I put Marwood. I would say stable inspired first wave.
I would say owner inspired.
Owner inspired, alive and owner inspired, and then the robots marked it. 480 or whatever it ran on the top. So that one was 950 to 650. The boys backed it in the morning or roundabout, and then
did their best. And then they couldn't get on early doors. They just said, right, well, we'll pin the shoulders back and put the rest on now.
So they had the jockey change. They had a big jockey change. The robots would have loved that.
Yeah, you know what? Afterwards, I went, I got that wrong. And I thought, why? And then I thought, hard low jaws magicus. So.
Yeah, out you go.
So something's going to come in, and then I still didn't fucking know why. And then exactly just looked at the spreadsheet, and there it was: J Brothers, D-Lane, boom. Yeah.
Well, that's exactly like honestly, I marked that horse 10 to 1 only because of its racing pattern, right? You know what I mean?
Thanks.
So
you made me feel better.
When it's 9s into 7s or whatever, I'm thinking.
Always about it. The owners about it.
This is the owners. I might have a little. So I might have had $100 on Betfair just to take a little bit of insurance, but I wasn't
fancy.
And then. As it's getting close to the start and the robots chimed in, I thought, they've just got they are certain D-Lane's going to get this horse within striking distance. So I've had a little bit more best tape, which is a disaster. And to my guys in PBL that are wondering why I didn't post that in the chat room, it was very late, and I just didn't want to tip you into a horse at the bottom of the market that's potentially a back market, so I didn't. But
let's marry the two things up, because we're going to talk about Caulfield Review to come. But you touched on something there that I think is pretty important to factor into all your thinking, because you said about bet to your prices, but then don't ignore a real tidal wave.
No, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. When you've done your prices, you've got to know in your mind how certain you are. So the key horse in that race to me was Magicus. Okay, so I priced it at a certain point, 320 or whatever it was. But my concern all along was the inside gate, and it just being tortured for, and that's exactly what happened. So because I was sort of not totally convinced about that price, it meant that I could sort of, in my mind, say maybe it should have been 380, and Marwood can be in there.
Yeah. So this is just coming, I should have told you before, but did you see Ben Cray, there was some big article, was it Ben Cray?
Yeah, Ben Cray did one for, no, they got it on the Gold. No, he did it for the Gold Coast Bulletin. It was one of Brad Davidson's last articles.
Well,
that's what an article, was it?
Yeah. I just read it. So, but one of the things, someone asked me what I thought about it. I don't know, he clearly knows his stuff.
Yeah, it's good.
But he said about, you must bet to your prices, and my belief, and we all do it differently, there's no disrespect in what I'm saying here, but is that I think the importance of having your own prices is that that's your starting point of your thinking. Because I don't think it can be definitive when it comes to things like horses resuming, horses, has only had one run, has it come on. What it's saying is, I just believe that you use that as a starting point for what you're going to do, but then don't ignore these big moves either way, because that's collective market intelligence telling you something. So
it's just everyone's different. Like Potts takes the insurance out when something like that. I go down holding the baby. Yeah. Like, I would have said, well, I made a blue on Magic Is, or I would try and back Magic Is each way or something. He's me betting the race. So I've got to back Mail, then I've got to back something else, and I don't want to back 4 in a race and spend $3 grand when I only want to spend 800 or So that's the way I operate. That's me. And that might be Ben. But I think he's more saying that if you mark something 4s and it's 14s, have the same bet you're going to have on it 4s and 14s, because over time you'll beat them. But some you might say, well, in town that means they're not fair. Someone else in the bush it just means just keep betting.
All I'm saying is, I think you should use it as something to ask yourself why something's happening. So like longer on, for instance, twice. Yeah. No, I fucking loved it. All right, so I'm happy that I remembered. But one day I got it wrong for the same reason. But I thought, no, this will ease for this reasons, but I'm still going to be with it. I'm interested in how much, but at least ask yourself why something's happening all the time.
Oh, no,
and that's what important.
And that's what I'm trying to say. It's been about being more patient, betting into races as well. Yeah. I used to be trying to get on the early markets, trying to go to 9, 10 in the morning, trying to get the overs, but all of a sudden then the bloody Dr. Nick's joined something back 3 in the race against you, and hell, I got this wrong, and yours just expressed back out. And if you waited for that market until they like it, okay, this one's going to get out, I'm going to get better odds. You just wait, you're more patient, there's more turnover later, you can get on Betfair. So
can I just make everyone feel better though?
Yeah.
I only have 15 horses in my black book. Marwood's one of them. I backed him in his last 11 starts.
You're on fire, Joe.
I chopped out on Saturday when I probably should have had a very handsome winning day if I backed one horse. And to make it worse, I spoke to Mitch Freeman at Sandown on Wednesday and said, how's Woody going? And he said, couldn't have him better. We're right, we've got the jock change, we're there.
His brother won the previous, Divine Maserati. It was exactly the same setup.
So can I just say that I agree with what Ralph's saying. I think it's absolutely right. I think different each race has its own circumstances and you have to understand it. So on the day there was Marwood and the other one was Nasdaq's. Now, I wanted to bet that 2-year-old race, but I didn't want to have a massive exposure. I wanted to back a couple of horses that were out of the market, really. I was a bit concerned about the favourite, didn't really know where to put him, so I was happy to sort of save on the favourite. When they started backing Nasdaq's, I thought about it, I completely understand where they're coming from. Exactly. But for me, he's coming off the synthetic, he's probably going to lack a little bit of conditioning at the end of a fast race. I'm happy to cop it. And the other point I want to make is in our chat room, we've got a tremendous guy there that tends to give us a heads up on some large goes, and he told us an hour and a half before the Nasdaq race that it was going to be heavily backed. So a few of our guys took some $7 and then traded back out of it. So it was a good result around for us. But I mean, again, Ralph's point is that money was there, it was market intelligence. I had to decide whether I wanted to protect myself with Nasdaq's, and I had reasons to not.
Yeah, and you're prepared for it.
You're happy.
Because I'll go back, because we're going to do a call for it in depth. So I'll go back the week before at Flemington, for instance. Now, if you were adamant on your form and on Piccolo running to its best, and you ignored the fucking Betfair-itis that it had, you've lost a lot of money. So what I'm saying, a horse who's had quite a few runs, as opposed to one doing that, and hard runs, there's probably a reason why it's going to have the drift, and particularly if you're not on course and you don't look at the animal and you don't, that's a weakness of yours. That's all I'm saying. That you don't. That's the danger of being hard and fast to your prices.
Oh no, yeah.
That's probably an example.
Because I've been in maiden still, all my prices are.
Yeah.
You can't be. Your first starters, resumers, the maps, they go forward one day, back the next, they're still finding their patterns.
That's it.
So I'm very flexible. You know, I think, it's...
So I send out my prices as they are at 9 o'clock on Saturday morning or thereabouts, 8:30, 9 o'clock, whatever. That doesn't mean I'm not prepared to make adjustments to them depending on what happens on the day.
Well, that's why we have the chat room.
That's the chat room, being able to keep people updated.
That's a harder job than what you... Anyway, that's a good discussion on those issues. So what about the...
Anything else?
Do we need to discuss the...
SA.
What's happening with SA?
SA and the minimum bet rules, they're all sort of part of the same
minimum bet rule, the survey's closed now, so there will be... I don't think it was a massive response.
They're just going to show. They're going to show everyone what people are.
Only around about the 200 mark, I'm led to believe, was the responses. I would have thought there'd be more than that, and also, we've got the great folk over there at the Australian Legion.
I would assume that the Tab is the biggest fixed odds operator.
Yeah,
fair enough to say.
It would be.
And Michael Felgate had Craig Nugent on from the Tab. I don't know if you guys heard it.
I didn't hear it, but I saw it. Someone alerted me to it.
So I heard Craig Nugent, and the Tab are absolutely happy with the New South Wales rules. No more I'm in Victoria. So I think that should be the end of the debate. That should be the end of it.
Which shows that the whole thing was window dressing.
Well, no, the whole thing was here's Crownbet's opinion. Don't put it in the Tab or anything.
So Craig Nugent said, "Come on."
We're the joint venture partner. They didn't even ask us.
But Donald Trump apparently at RVL says, anyone who dares question what they do is being a negative to the industry, and it's frog shit.
Well,
we're entitled to a question when they bring in things that suit Crownbet as opposed to customers.
Well, I want to put it to Craig Nugent then, Potts. Apply the New South Wales rules, because you're picking and choosing when you're doing it.
Well, they're operating in a market, Juppy, They're operating within the rules.
Everyone's got their own rules. They've been me the best of anyone.
They're saying they'll accept those results.
Yeah, well, they're currently not doing it on New South Wales Racing, though, Potts. If you're trying to back a horse to win 1,000 that isn't at the secondary meeting on a Saturday, you're going to struggle with it. So, say the secondary meeting's at Kimler and you're trying to back a horse at Wagga to win 1,000, you're going to struggle. That's why I sort of cut back. I remember there was one day there I tried to back one and I couldn't even get anything on.
But
it was Labor Day or something.
I'm not singing up because it was rules, right? I'm not singing up for anyone. But what I'm saying is, let's face it, the spirit of the idea of these rules being brought in was for the key core day of betting, to get as many people on as possible and to make it as a non-bullshit market.
Yeah.
People are playing. So I think the fact that, and I remember after we had this discussion with you and Ed, Dan, that we had real good feedback from people saying that the bottom line is it worked in New South Wales.
Yep.
Why aren't they just adopting it? And anything else?
Well, I think you'll find that's what will happen.
We hope. Don't cry and run.
Absolutely. Let's hope it happens. And
Racing Victoria, who knows, mate?
I think the key issue here is, and I just want Racing Victoria to understand this. The number one issue here is, like a lot of the people I talk to, they're sick of having to go through the rigmarole of, getting their mates involved in their betting or whatever, or their wife or their cousin or whoever. You know what I mean? Like, so you might want to call them bowler accounts, whatever you want to call them. But at the end of the day,
it's out of necessity.
If I open up an account and they close it down, I can't use it, and my best mate's got an account, well, I can tell him what bets to put on and he can put them on. I don't see how that's a bowler account necessarily. That's just...
I'd just like to currently thank my current mechanic, because without him I wouldn't be getting on at the minute.
If you said there's only 200 responses,
yeah,
what does that tell Racing Victoria about how much customers trust them?
Well, it frightened me though,
because they would have. I'll tell you what, if we said a punt survey, how often do we say it? We put out a survey on Twitter, we get 200 responses. If we said, right, how we go, get rid of me or whatever.
It wasn't so much the punters that frightened me, there was a key part of that survey that I think would change the landscape drastically if they adopted it, which is if they decide to stop the WSPs from betting with one another. Because if the bookies can't bet with themselves on course, and you can't back bet, and they can't do that, then the on-course market will be dead in 2 years. Because all the money is just being shifted around that way. Like, they'll either accept a call from someone, or in some cases, some of those bookies are just punters themselves. All they're doing is trading. They might want to back it at $12 and they'll try and put it in at $8. But the thing is, if they can turn around and Dan runs up to me when I'm on the stand and says, Juppy, to win 5, the turnoff says, sorry mate, you're a bookie, you're a WSP, I don't have to bet you.
Could you imagine the stock exchange saying two big brokers couldn't buy and sell shares with each other?
Well, so that's the thing that frightened me if they bring that in. And the other thing that worried me there was I went and spoke to as many bookies as I could to try and let them know that they needed to fill the survey out, and the amount of them that didn't know that this survey was occurring and how it was going to affect them, it probably doesn't reflect terribly well on the VBA and Racing Victoria.
Quickly on South Australia.
Well, South Australia have got this outrageous point of consumption tax. So the corporates have decided that they're not going to wear it, and they're going to try and challenge it and do whatever they can because they don't like it.
What chance do you think that they would pull out of South Australian racing? I think I'll be rucking for the Demons before that happens. But what's your
it's not so much that they'll do that. It's just like
they do it all the time. They set it on worse odds. They did that with the Racefield's legislation.
What we need
this comes in, there'll be worse odds on bonus, less promotions. Sports bet's in another 120 million back.
We need a
last
list.
year. Spent 40 million on advertising.
Jockeys are never going to ride unless they can hit a horse every stride. Corporate bookies are going to pull out of betting if they go. Like, it's all
the one thing we did see with the Racefields though was there was an erosion in some of the products. Some of the products got taken away and haven't been since. It's not so much for the big guys.
What do you mean by products?
The best of the best is almost completely
only
gone.
Only for owners.
Only for owners. But they sort of, a lot of joints had that, and even some of the middle tier joints, even the best Toten SP in a lot of places has gone there because of the race field. So if they want to then put a 15% point of consumption tax on it, all I know is that it's like my dog track at Wodonga that I'm building. It's just there'll be an outlet just across the border there at like Conniver where they've just got to drive over the border and you can come and do all your business there.
I think when with the racefield legislation, there was an impact on the liquidity on Betfair. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
I heard Betfair that might because
it still
as
has
an exchange. It was more.
Yeah. There are some times when it comes back, but it's sort of a bit spasmodic these days. So it's you got to sort of feed your money on there slowly.
So you're saying Betfair is less of a guide now since then because it's
not really less of a guide. There's just
not as much. You just can't get on for as much.
Right.
Still
the poor old bookies that are following it, honestly, sometimes it's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like on course they might be $3.60 and it might be $4 on Betfair or something, and so you can almost feel the bookies on course reaching for it to get it out to $3.80 or to chase the fare out. You go on Betfair and look, and there's $8 and $4 and $22 and $3.80 or something.
Yeah, so if you have 100 on it, next thing you know it's $3.20. There's blokes just scattering around the ring to win 1,500 to try and get on.
But anyway, like if they do have this tax in South Australia, and I don't know if it will, but if it impacts prices because they're
budgeting $9 million across every wagering, which is operator, which is totes and everything, so $9 million across how many? 25 bookies or 30 bookies, 12 months. I mean,
the point is
that $500,000
the reality is racing is competing in an environment that includes sport betting, particularly. They're competing with customers for sports betting and poker. And if you put the price of betting on racing up, and a lot of those sort of people that have got a choice, and that could carry on.
Was this just on racing, or was it on every bet? Every bet struck.
Everything.
This was on every bet struck.
So
every bet struck in the state.
Here's my question to the Treasurer of South Australia, whose name escapes me. It's a long name, I know that. I want to buy a vowel.
It's like Concar at Cesanis, but something like that. Tom Conduras or something like that.
Right. So I can either take in a footy line bet, I can take probably let's say $1.80 either side once you put your consumption tax on. Or I can go to Pinnacle, who are offshore and are not governed by you at all, and I can take $1.96 either side. Why would I bet with one of the Australians?
But this isn't your fault, our fault, anyone else. This is racing's fault for not understanding their own product enough, so that when Nick Xenophon, who's clearly gathering power, and fair enough too, because let's face it, the gambling's been a scourge of the community in a lot of areas, including the poker machines. This is racing's fault for not saying, no, there's enough people who think wagering's fascinating, they do form, this is what's good about it, this is the industry that it covers. Instead, they just go, well, it's all about wonderful stories and there's another breeder's bonus. Instead, they could go to him and say, well, as you said, this is our real competition. Our real competition is offshore betting and sports betting. Yep. So if we don't do something as a racing industry and make the pricing competitive, the real smart punters will start going on sport and we won't have an industry. But racing itself doesn't understand that. We understand it, but the people running it don't.
All right, boys. Well, that'll do us for a mammoth part one.
Big session.
When do you get the Cobalt?
No, we'll get. That's right. We're all going to have a big bowl of. We're going to have a big bowl of narrative for lunch, and then we'll be back with part 2.
You guys, you gave me the best list of all time when we did our first show. I said something about it, and I looked at